Last video, I took a spectrogram and I coded it so you can draw on it. But honestly, I can't deny, the sounds it created made me want to, and some of you guys agreed as well. So in this video, I'm going to be fixing everything and creating SpectroDraw Pro. Alright, enough yapping. Let's get in. First things first, you can't have a proper sound editor without stereo audio. My program only had one spectrogram, meaning a single audio channel. So I added another one, making each use a different speaker. I actually made the number of channels based on a slider, so you could have any amount of spectrograms. But what if you wanted to draw something that wasn't 100% left channel or 100% right channel? To solve this, I made an option to sync your brush movements across all channels and adjust the brush panels for each to create a sort of pan effect. Next, I decided to improve my undo/redo system because it sucked. I found this timeline that saved every action, basically allowing you to go back in time and fix your past mistakes. I thought this was freaking awesome, so I added it to my spectrogram editor. Each time you did anything, it would add a new sprite that you can enable, disable, move, and adjust effects for. Because I thought it would be cool, I also made the sprites fadeable using this fancy spline graph, so your brush strokes could ease into each other. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but making this whole sprites thing was such a struggle. Totally worth it though, because moving sprites just felt so magical. The third issue with my program was that most sound editors allow you to at least splice and edit sounds together, but not mine. You could only upload a single audio, as uploading a new one would restart the entire spectrogram. So I changed it so that the uploads would be stored as samples that you will need to drag and drop onto the spectrogram to either overwrite or insert them. I also made each sample into its own sprite, so you could drag them around, change their effects, or enable/disable them. Finally, I made the image overlay stored here so you could switch to different images without having to upload each time. Now that I had turned my program into a proper sound editor, it was time for me to load it up with features. From a combination of y'all suggestions and my own creativity, I decided to add a synth brush, stamps, auto-tune brush, cloner, and selection tool, and improve the noise remover. The synth brush is basically a brush that can simultaneously draw other frequencies above it, or harmonics, in order to create interesting sounds. To do this, I added a box with 100 bars that let you adjust the volume of up to 100 harmonics. I can now draw square waves, saw waves, triangle waves, and anything else. However, my brush system was pretty bad. It only drew one circle every frame, meaning that if I moved too fast, it would not draw a continuous line. But after a lot of math, I finally connected all the dots. The Stamps tool let you pick from a gallery of circles, triangles, and other shapes that you can overlay onto the spectrogram, which are actually pretty good at creating kicks, claps, and other sound effects. The auto-tune brush shifts each column by a constant pitch so that the average detune of the pitches in the column is equal to 0. The cloner tool lets you copy regions of the spectrogram onto other regions while adjusting the scale and phase strength if you want to preserve the colors. The selection tool would let you select a rectangular region that you could move and adjust the effects. Finally, last video, I was too lazy to implement a real noise remover algorithm, so I simply removed all frequencies under a certain volume. To improve the noise remover, my best buddy and I added a real algorithm. The new noise remover requires you to select a region of noise so it can analyze that area and accurately know what to remove. This worked a lot better than my old noise remover. My program was looking epic, but there was something else that was really cool I wanted to add: expressions. Basically, expressions can automate things like brush size, brightness, phase strength, and more by linking them to JavaScript code. So, for example, you could create a fire beat by using a simple if-else statement, or set the brush opacity to a random value, creating a kind of barcode. To the right of every brush parameter, I put a link button that opened a mini code editor where you can write the expressions. The default value of each expression is the value you use to reference it in other expressions. Another thing about expressions is that you can set values to anything, allowing you to go beyond the limits of sliders. So at this point, I was certain that I finished Spectrogram Pro. So I took a short break in order to make my previous video. And you guys sent me a lot of support and feedback. I appreciate it a lot. I love you guys so much. But reading through all the feedback helped me realize that Spectrogram was quite useless at making good sounding music. True, drawing with a cloner on a spectrogram is really cool, but the sound it makes... Firstly, I slightly improved the GUI. I added a bunch of more panels and converted everything to windows that could be resized, popped out, moved around, and docked. To make all the features easier to access, I spread them all around. So instead of switching around panels every time, you could see everything at once. All the brushes are now in the left panel, and all the brush settings are now in the right panel. For the less essential features like MIDI exporting and preferences, I moved them into separate windows. Also, taking inspiration from Photosounder, I added several knobs on the bottom for volume and spectrogram resolution, and a waveform viewer on top of the spectrogram. Now, my program finally looked like a professional software. But to truly make it a pro software, I had to make it create actually useful sound. So, I transformed my synth brush into a real synth. Just kidding, not a full synthesizer. I just added a chorus section that let you change voices, detune, pan, spread, and randomness. But there was one issue. I didn't have a proper pan system. Remember how I tried to add pans by creating multiple spectrograms assigned to different speakers? But this only works when there are multiple spectrograms, and there's only one by default. So, I decided to add an entirely new dimension to the spectrogram. Pan. Each pixel now had its unique magnitude, phase, and pan value, which was represented using saturation. This finally allowed me to represent any color on the spectrogram. But this was a problem because at low saturations, it is almost impossible to see the hue. So, I experimented with several other color schemes like RGB and YCRCB. Ultimately, I couldn't decide which one was the best, so I put it as a choice in preferences. Anyways, now that I had a pan, I could finally finish the synth brush. I finalized it by adding a bunch of presets. But there was still the issue that my spectrogram couldn't make good sounds. I wanted to be able to draw something, and instead of hearing this, get hit with the... In other words, chords. So, I improved my align pitch feature. I added this pitch wheel that lets you enable or disable notes in the scale to achieve different keys. I can now draw things that mildly resembled music, but I wanted it to resemble real music. At this point, I was met with the limitations of literally drawing on a spectrogram. I realized how absurd it was to create anything that sounds good by literally drawing all the frequencies. But then, I had an idea. What if, instead of playing the spectrogram exactly how it is, it would convert it into a MIDI and play it live with a synth? So, I added a piano mode button on the bottom bar and a settings button above that to edit the synth. For the synth, I created a generic synthesizer with harmonics, modulation, envelopes, and effects. Then, I changed it so that if piano mode was on, instead of generating audio normally, it would convert the spectrogram to MIDI. And instead of playing audio normally, it would play this MIDI using the synth. If you like Spectrogram Pro, you can try it out at spectrodraw.com. If you're too lazy to sign up for anything, I added a preview, link in description, so you can use it immediately. If you want to unlock it forever, for free, I made a free early access deal that ends on the 20th of March. The only requirement is for you to do some civic duties.